I'm Jason, and tonight we continue reading from the Oxford Dictionary of Nursery Rhymes. It's a real-life library book that I got at a real-life library, and we are reading a a nursery rhyme tonight called Baby. And I feel like I should read, and I feel like I should read the a little information about this, because the story today, I'm going to read it for historical sake, because nowadays it's not exactly what we do. So this story was written, at least in the notes, the author had mentioned somebody hearing lines from this back as far back as 1836. So for all my young listeners out there, think back to a time when you didn't have TV, you didn't have a phone, you didn't even have radio, you didn't have music or CDs or YouTube or anything like that. If you wanted to hear music, then you had to have somebody play you music real life. If you wanted to see somebody jump off a building, you couldn't, with a parachute, you couldn't go onto YouTube or watch a movie and see it. There was no computer animation. There was no artificial intelligence. Anything you saw happen, you saw in real life, or you saw like maybe a drawing or a painting of it. And this changed our entire culture. So the entire culture, I should say, was different then than it was now. And there was no insurance, or maybe there was, but you know what I'm saying? There's no insurance, no medicine, and doctors were very, very different than they are now. And if you wanted your children to behave, there wasn't the internet to reach out for help. A lot of times you use intimidation. You would scare them, because also if your child falls in the lake and if it gets washed away, there is no emergency medical services. There is no 911, right? And you wanted them to be careful not to fall in the river, so you told them there were trolls under the river, when they're really under the bridge, when there really wasn't. If you didn't want them wandering off in the woods because they might get lost and die, because there was no helicopters, there was no police, there was no 911, there was no fire, there was no fire rescue, I should say, there was no texting somebody to see if they saw your child, or calling for help on your phone. That didn't exist. So they said they would, adults would teach kids that there were monsters in the woods and things like that. And they would tell stories and fables of fearful and scary people in history, and threaten their children, saying, if you do this, this bad thing will happen. And we still do it sometimes, today in our culture. But it was pretty dominant, because as soon as you didn't want a child growing up and, like I said, running away from the mom and dad, they were running into the wilderness and they might never be found, or there was wolves and there's a lot more predators, things like that. I think I've belabored that point enough. So this nursery rhyme is one of those nursery rhymes where you tell it to your child and it does two things. It scares them from some sort of behavior, and it prompts them or rewards them for doing what the parent wants. And I understand as a parent myself, sometimes you're like, I really wish I could just do something to make you stop crying, or I could do something to make you, do what I want. So I understand it intellectually. I'm happy to say that this style of nursery rhyme has fallen out of vogue, but I am going to go ahead and read it, even if it's just for its historical purposes. But I am going to read the little footnote it has at the end. A type of lullaby which hopes to obtain peace by intimidation. The boogies, where we get the word boogeyman, but the boogies who have been named in this song at one time or another would probably cover several chapters of British history, as well as Bonaparte, which is mentioned in the poem, as well as Bonaparte in the above, sent by a correspondent who knew it from her grandmother. Recorded versions include Meshenkov, a Russian commander in the Crimean War, and Black Old Crow, Oliver Cromwell, and Wellington. A writer in Notes and Queries remembered hearing some of these verses as far back as 1836. So this is a conglomerate. Is that the word I'm looking for? This is a compilation, maybe, of different sort of poems, but you get it. Basically, it's having a child learn that they need to do well, otherwise they will be threatened. Otherwise, bad things could happen. Baby, baby, naughty baby, Hush, you squalling thing, I say. Peace this moment, peace, or maybe Bonaparte will pass this way. And keep in mind, Bonaparte, probably Napoleon Bonaparte, or someone else named Bonaparte, like they would have gone down in history, and this child would have learned, oh, Bonaparte equals bad, and no, they're telling the child, you better do good things, otherwise Bonaparte might come. Baby, baby, he's a giant, tall and black as Rowan steeple, and he breakfasts, dines, rely on't every day on naughty people. So basically, they're telling their baby that this is a huge giant and he eats people. Baby, baby, if he hears you as he gallops past the house, limb from limb at once he'll tear you, just like a cat tears a mouse. And he'll beat you, beat you, beat you, and he'll beat you all to pap. And he'll eat you, eat you, eat you, every morsel, snap, snap, snap. Well, we have evolved as a people, and we all know that if you're a child and you disobey your parents or you're loud at night, a big giant isn't going to come and have you for dinner. But what do we have in our culture that's similar to this? Well, I would say Santa Claus, right? We teach our children to sing. He sees you when you're sleeping. He knows when you're awake. He knows if you've been bad, so you better be good for goodness sake. And it's the same sort of thing where no longer do we threaten them to, do we threaten children that, hey, here comes Krampus is going to beat you. It's, hey, here comes Santa, and you're not going to get rewarded if, he sees you not being good. So I hope you enjoyed this little one. Again, I felt the need to justify it and talk about it. So, we can look at it for its historical piece, but we will absolutely move on to the next one. But still, I hope you enjoyed it. Cheers.